Hello, and welcome to another 2 Network match report with me, Adam. I've just gone in from the game. As you can tell, my voice is hoarse. Today we played Everton and lost 1-0 at St James's Park once again. I think it's the worst run since the start of November across the top 5 leagues in Europe. It's a pretty terrible state of affairs. Earlier today we had great news, or certainly great potential news, about a fee being agreed for the sale of Newcastle United by Mark Ashley to Amanda Staveley and PCP Partners. Talk of an investment by Saudi royal family, for example, but certainly once the kick-off at Everton was underway, all minds in the stadium were focused on nothing but 3 points, 3 valuable points. We didn't get them, and I've just had a look on Twitter and not everyone, there's a lot of people sounding off about this and that, a lot of people obviously very upset, animated, trying to point blame, trying to understand why we are where we are, whose fault is it. I guess the easy answer, the short answer is Mike Ashley. And that's without irony. That's with full sincerity. Mike Ashley is the reason, the sole reason we are where we are. And the very fact that he has people online essentially blaming the best manager we've had under Mike Ashley because, oh, well, he's picked Diarmi and he's not picked him, and, oh, I don't like Manquillo at left back. And, you know, I don't agree with every selection decision that Rafa Benitez makes. I don't. I didn't agree with him persisting with Joselu for so long in that run where he didn't score. I don't agree with any team that Diarmi plays in. However, I know that picking or not picking Diarmi in the big scale of things is not the reason we're in free fall towards the relegation zone. It's the fact that our squad is ultimately still a championship squad. Our squad is lacking in investment. Rafa Benitez was screwed over by Mike Ashley back in January and again in summer. Did Rafa Benitez want to buy £4.5 million Manquillo and £5 million Joselu? No chance. Were they on his shortlist? No chance. Would they have been top 3 transfer targets? No, of course not. So, would he want to be starting a player like Diarmi? Probably not. And as much as I don't agree with Diarmi being picked, I understand why he put him in there. Because Everton were going to pack the midfield, and Diarmi, for all his faults, and he has many, he's a lump. He's physical, and he gets in the way. I don't rate him as a footballer, certainly not at Premier League level. I don't think he's particularly good at passing. He's not very good at running. He doesn't score, he doesn't assist. He does very little in that respect. But at the same time, these are minor factors that Benitez is trying to play around with. These are tiny in the big scale of where we're at as a football club. You don't just undo years of underinvestment and neglect by an owner that quite simply doesn't give a shit. And he hasn't done. He didn't care enough in summer to back Rafa Benitez. Every player that Rafa Benitez has signed hasn't been a success. No. But the players that he did sign won in the league. Literally the most he could have achieved last year was winning the league. And he did it. So let's trust him, because he's an elite manager. He has won major titles. So the reason, you know, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, basically. And our squad is a championship squad. However, despite the fact that we went into half-time 1-0 down. I largely couldn't fault the first half performance there. We hit the post twice, 2 amazing efforts by first Richie and then Marino. We troubled them. Jordan Pickford was nervous and wildly trying to kick out to clear it. We had them on the back foot. They were panicking. But I think they were always set up to not concede. I think their goal was very fortuitous. Again, it comes from a defensive error. It's not helpful to point individuals out. However, it needs to be highlighted the fact that Darlow has taken the place off Elliott. That's another contentious decision. And after the Mahrez goal, which I thought just went straight through his hands, he's given away such a weak goal from what was a very weak header by, I believe, Aaron Lennon. And Rooney's pounced and it's a tap in. From that distance, for that power, you catch it or you knock it out to the side, preferably for a corner kick. But that one attack that they had in the first half has cost us the game. Because the whole thing smacks of the Bournemouth game again. Really good first half. Peppered the goal, lots of chances created, tails are up, momentum's on, crowd's loud, and we couldn't find the net. And ultimately, by the time the second half came around, Allardyce's looked to shut up shop. Eventually brought on Jagielka for a 5-man defence. But we lost our confidence and we couldn't repeat what we did in the first half. And that was the same story for Bournemouth. We couldn't repeat that first half. We started really well at Stamford Bridge and Old Trafford in the first half. Yet we just fell away in the second half. So there's a mentality issue there. Is that Rafa Benitez's fault? Possibly. If you look at it isolated in the bubble of the last 2 months, month and a half. But the reason that, the reason that we're underperforming is that we have a lack of talent, we have a lack of squad depth, which means when players aren't potentially performing to the best, we've got very little options to bring people in. And it seems to me like some people don't understand how simple that is. Lejeune and Clark together had a few shaky games. I thought Clark's positioning has been really poor the last few games, and I think he was right to be dropped. But people before the game saying Lejeune should have been dropped, which I massively disagree with. Again, he hasn't been faultless, but he's definitely the better performer. You look at Yedlin, who had a few games and was terrible, but I think he got dropped for 1 game. But I think he's such is his danger going forward, and the lack of real competition, despite the fact we have Mbemba, who Rafa doesn't pick because of communication. He's got James, who he just doesn't fancy, but is he just not up to the pace? Is he too old? I don't know. We lack balance on the left-hand side. Manquillo, he's not my favourite player by any means. I think he's beaten too easily. But we've got very few options when Dummett's been injured since the first game of the season. We haven't got another left-back to come in. So these things matter. We haven't really got a true defensive midfielder in January, which I think we tried to buy James McCarthy from Everton because they have like 20 centre midfielders. In the summer, we were linked with the Samaris guy, the Greek guy. So it's not like Rafa Benitez has just thought, oh yeah, we'll just take what we've got. If he had the money to spend, he would have invested it wisely on the positions that he knows that we're weak in. And this is why we don't know who our best striker is. Gale's gone on a great run the last few games, but he's kind of bullied tonight. Didn't really get a sniff. Hosselu came on and won a couple of headers, but we're talking about very low quality, and Rafa called this in summer. He called it, and because we went on a few runs of wins early on, that seemed to mask over the, paper over the cracks. That seemed to mask over actually what the crisis was. He overachieved in that respect. So I can't abide. Look, Rafa Benitez is not blameless. He's not. However, the very fact that people can't see the bigger picture and the bigger reason why we're in this situation is baffling. He's staring you in the face. He's realised, and that's why he's selling. Except, as the final insult, he decided he wanted to sell after he'd fucked up the transfer window in summer, after he didn't back Rafa Benitez. And now Rafa Benitez is having to go out in the Premier League, and even teams that we think we should be beating, like Watford, Burnley, Bournemouth, they've at least had a couple of years in the Premier League where they've invested, where they've built up their squad over a number of transfer windows. Even 2 years in the Premier League gives you 4 transfer windows to add strength and buy in Premier League quality players. We haven't done that. We bought a reserve striker from Stoke who wasn't getting his game. That was the answer to our goal scoring problem. What did we think was going to happen? And getting back to the game, we lost confidence in the second half, and we allowed them, we were toothless up front, and this is what happens when you pack the midfield and Diarmi got his body in the way a couple of times, but we just weren't, I don't think we were sure about what we were doing. To be honest, the 3 subs, none of them made an impact whatsoever. I'd forgotten Aarons and Hossley would even come on after they'd been on for about 5-10 minutes. Perez, didn't see him again. Didn't see him at all. But what else has he got? He obviously tactically does not trust Mitrovic. I like Mitrovic. I like him. But again, I understand why he's not getting his game. To an extent, I do understand. And maybe Mitrovic comes on and gets us a header, but maybe he doesn't as well. It's so difficult, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. I thought tonight's game, looking at the Shelvey red card, I thought that the first tackle was not a booking, and I thought that the second one was, it was right next to me, it was rash. Yeah, it's really difficult because you add up those 2 tackles, those 2 yellow card tackles, and it doesn't equal a red card. It doesn't. Combined, the first one he won the ball, and it was his first foul, and without hesitation, Martin Atkinson, yellow card. It was given on reputation alone and nothing else. In comparison, you look at Wayne Rooney, who persistently fouled. He had a few fouls, but added up, that's persistent fouling. And the referee, even if he doesn't brandish a yellow card, he needs to speak to him to say one more. But he didn't. He tolerated Rooney's persistent fouling when Rooney got substituted off. It was a farce. It was basically he was taking the piss. He was making fools of everybody in that stadium, including the referee, and the referee allowed it. The most that referee showed Rooney, in terms of a threat, was this. I'm gonna pause the time if you don't hurry up. Why is he not being reprimanded? If you can show Shelvey a straight yellow card for the first foul that he makes, in fact, the first tackle that he makes, and it's not even he wins the ball. If he thinks it's a foul, fair enough, but it's not a yellow card. It's just not. He's given Shelvey a yellow card off reputation. However, if Rooney persistently fouls, it's just banter. It's Rooney. Referee was having a good laugh. Absolute joke. I think it's things like that where the officials almost protected Everton in many situations, and basically bought into Tom Davies. I think he's a great player, but he basically took a dive into Yedlin, and it was a free kick. The referee bought it, and he stayed down, and he's injured. But then he's up preparing to take the free kick. It was a joke, absolute farce. And the referee, as much as I thought he got all the big decisions right, apart from the red card, I don't agree with the red card. You might disagree with me, but those 2 tackles did not equal a red card. No chance. No chance. But I think Martin Atkinson's demeanour throughout the game was poor. I thought it was quite appalling. He got in the way of Marino. He laughed. He got in the way of a ball from Marino trying to pass it, but it hit Martin Atkinson. We're losing. He's running along laughing because he thinks it's hilarious. It's not funny. It might be funny to Everton fans, fair play, but it's not funny in that situation. It's not appropriate to laugh at the fact that he stopped us because he's in the way because he hasn't read the game well enough. That's so poor. That is so poor. And I was absolutely hoarse at the end because I could not abide the fact that Atkinson didn't speak to Shelvey once. It was just 2 yellow cards brandished on reputation. And I'm repeating myself, but I'm absolutely furious. Look, I went into the game tonight thinking, after this takeover news, nothing was going to ruin my mood. Yet, reality bites when you're at St James's Park watching the football, because all you're thinking about is the game, and it's another defeat. And I said it in the last video. I don't know where our next win's coming from. We've got Arsenal away. West Ham away it's a crucial 6-pointer, but I don't fancy us to win that game. We've got Man City as well. We're gonna get absolutely terrorised. You know, where are we gonna get these points from? We can't just rely on scraping it into January, because guess what? Even if we do invest in January, we're gonna have to be playing games before any of these players come in, more than likely, unless we've got them lined up now, which I wouldn't trust at all. So what do? We've got to get it together somehow, but Rafa Benitez is the man to do it. I fully back him. Anyone thinking that we'd be better off without Rafa Benitez, look, the run of form is tough, and people are questioning, well, we didn't question, you know, we questioned Pardew and McLaren if we go on a run like this, and yeah, we did, and rightly so, but guess what? Rafa Benitez didn't get 80 million to spend last summer, and guess what? When Rafa Benitez changes things, there's a bloody reason behind every meticulous decision that he makes, and that's why he deserves respect. He's meticulous, attention to detail. Managers like McLaren and Pardew aren't tactically intellectual. They just roll the dice and hope it works. And with Pardew, well, we all know what happened with Pardew. He'd go on a run of 5 games unbeaten. It'd be amazing. He'd suddenly be like, but we all knew what would happen. As soon as we lost one, we'd go on another run again. And we knew that there would be no logic behind any changes that he makes about formation, about team selection. Whereas at least with Rafa, you know he's had to think about it. You know he's been on the training ground, and you know that he'll be up all night thinking about how he can find those little wins that will give us the edge in a game to try and win it. That's the difference between Rafa Benitez and the likes of Pardew and McLaren. And if you can't see the difference between that, I cannot help you. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what to say. If you think we'll be better off without Rafa Benitez, Christ, like you haven't been paying attention, and you're not aware of the bigger picture at Newcastle United. He's not blameless, but bloody hell, it's really not his fault where we are. He's overachieving with a championship squad at the minute. I trust him to turn it round. I think it's important to look at the performances at Leicester, despite losing. The performance in the first half at Manchester United, despite losing. The performance away to West Brom, to fight back. And even the performance in the first half tonight at Everton. We don't look like a team that's crumbling and capitulated. We do in the second half of most games, granted. But there is a team spirit there. And I was pleased to see Lascelles back. I was pleased to see Marino and Shelvey together because they played really well against Liverpool when they started together. However, it leaves us exposed. But I thought it's daft because in the first half, Everton didn't offer anything. If we played like we did in the first half again in the second half, I'd take that all day, despite being 1-0 down, because they scored from their only attack, and it was a defensive mistake. If we went into the second half thinking, we're going to get a few shots at goal, a couple might hit the woodwork or get close, and they're going to have only one shot at goal, you'd take it all day. So, amazingly, yes, there are positives to take from such a terrible run. And believe me, I'm not enjoying this, and I'm not just trying to find positives where I can or just being blindly deluded and optimistic, but sometimes you've just got to look at it and be logical and know that we've got a talented manager at the helm and that it won't always be this bad. It won't. It could be a lot worse. Look down the road at Sunderland. Like, at least we have this hope of a takeover that could be the start of something absolutely incredible that I think all of us really deserve, given what we've gone through the last 10 years. None of us have deserved it. But now we might get a reward because some people with money who want to get into the Premier League game can see the potential in this club. And I love this, absolutely love this club. And it's not right. Things like people cheering Diarmi off, I thought was embarrassing. And regardless of what you think of him, personally, as I said, I don't think he should have been in the team. I don't think he added much, but I don't think he was the worst player on our team tonight. However, he gets cheered off, and what does that do for mentality? That's not just going to affect Diarmi. That's going to affect the rest of the team. If they're cheering, Diarmi got a bigger cheer walking off, getting subbed off, than Aaron's got coming on. That's not right. Some people took joy in it tonight, and you know, if you want to find joy in that, that's your prerogative. I'm not gonna judge you. But personally, I didn't cheer Diarmi going off. If he's had a bad game, if we're playing poorly, if people didn't agree with the selection, that's fair enough. But I thought a big collective, it was like half the stadium cheered him going off. I don't know. It's not conducive to a very good team spirit, and I was a little bit embarrassed about that. But that's just me. You might completely disagree with me and criticise me for saying that, but you know, fans have the right paying fans have the right to say and do offer their opinion. I'm not going to patronise anyone and say how you should think, because that's your decision to make. Likewise with what you think about Rafa Benitez right now. But what I am saying is, if you've got anger towards Rafa Benitez and these decisions that he's making, and let's be honest, he hasn't got, there's not many other options he could take, then you're missing the major reason. And I'll give you a clue. He's massive. He doesn't care. He's from the south. And he went off to America this week while Rafa Benitez is stuck wondering how much he's got to spend in January, because guess what? He wants to do some work. He wants to look ahead. He wants to try and fix things. And at the minute, money's the only thing that's going to fix the situation right now, and we're going to have to throw a hell of a lot at it because of the lack of investment that we've experienced over the last few years. That's the reason we are where we are. We have squad depth, we have fatigue and injuries that we can't rectify and fix, and we can't replace players because we have nobody of a reasonable quality to even come in. Yes, you could argue Mbemba and you could argue that Mitrovic have quality, but yes, I trust that Rafa Benitez sees that they can't do a job. I know that Mbemba doesn't speak English, and Rafa finds it really, really difficult to communicate instructions to him, especially in the throes of a match where he just needs to fire out a quick... If Mbemba hasn't learned English yet, and he's been here for 2 years, if Mbemba hasn't learned English yet, and he can't receive the information that he needs he needs information within a second to turn his man off, then that's a problem. And I can understand Rafa Benitez leaving him out, even though I feel he's one of our best defenders on his day. He really is. But it's tactically. And Mitrovic, can he trust him? I guarantee, even though the Shelvey sending off today shouldn't have been a sending off, Rafa Benitez will probably drop him for a good few games now because of that, because he thinks he can't trust him, and maybe he can't. I don't know. I'm really annoyed. I'm really hoarse. It's kind of ruined the takeover news for me. When we get a bit more details on that, maybe I'll put up another video and we'll chat about that, and hopefully it'll be a lot more optimistic than tonight has been. I feel you need to hear the anger, and if you can hear that tapping, it's me bloody cat just going mental. So apologies if that's annoying, if that's interfered with your audio. Anyway, thank you so much for watching once again. Please get your comments in below on YouTube. It really means a lot when I get feedback, even if it's, I like to hear constructive feedback as well, but it's great to hear people saying some nice things as well. I love doing these videos for you. I'll continue to do them as long as people are watching them. We'll also be on iTunes and SoundCloud for the audio version of this podcast. And of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. So check us out on that. Thanks very much for watching. It's another defeat for Newcastle United. Where's the next win coming from? Let's hope January can help change our fortunes. The takeover could be the saviour. Amanda Staveley, I think it's time to it's time to come on board. I've been Adam of the Toon Network. Thanks very much. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye.